Our next inductee is in the world of one of the sports that I love to cover, and that's basketball. And when I chat with some of the players that he has represented and coached through the years, I get comments like, great coach, even a better man. Great man, greater coach. I refer to him as Mr. Basketball. Please welcome Bob Bain to the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
Robert Bain was born on December 2nd, 1947, and grew up in Niagara Falls. His parents met on a basketball court at a Royal Canadian Air Force base. Bob Bain played baseball and hockey growing up. He excelled at basketball and played at Stamford Collegiate Institute in Niagara Falls. He attended Waterloo Lutheran University, now the Wilfrid Laurier University. He graduated with a degree in psychology while playing for the Golden Hawks, making the national championships 3 times, including their win in 1968. Bain went to the University of Alberta playing for the Golden Bears for 2 seasons. He obtained a BA and later a master's degree in physical education. After a bad accident, he focused on coaching. This was available to him at Alberta because he was in a master's program and had already played for 5 years. He coached the Golden Bears in 1972 and 73. Bain returned to Ontario to teach in York University's Physical Education Department, began coaching basketball, and made Aurora his home. Bain was named head coach of York's University men's basketball team in 1973-1974 and remains the longest-serving coach in York's history.
Bob's a very successful and special coach because he's an intellectual, he's an innovator, and he's able to establish positive relationships with his players. So in terms of basketball, he studied the game, he became as I said, he delved right into the game and the nuances of the game, and he understood the concepts of the game. And I think that set him apart back when he started coaching. And he's an innovator. He's willing to take risk and try new things. As an example, one of the things that he was renowned for in his early days in coaching was the matchup zone. And the matchup zone defense is quite unique. And I thought from a national perspective and international perspective, he was one of the innovators in terms of utilizing the matchup zone in basketball.
When you've got a locker room with so many different personalities, and some guys were okay with adapting to what he had to say, and some guys put the wall up. They didn't, and it didn't bother him. He understood that some of the stuff that he said, some guys were going to take to it and some guys weren't. But everybody, he never ever used the one-size-fits-all approach. Never.
His teams made the playoffs 35 times, achieved 11 Ontario University Athletics East Division first-place finishes, 6 Ontario University Athletics Conference Championship banners, 8 Canadian Inter-University Sport National Championship appearances, winning bronze in 1978 and 1979. The York Yeoman won over 700 victories in his 38-year career. He coached 14 Canadian InterVarsity Sport All-Canadians, 80 OUA All-Stars, and 5 York University Athletes of the Year. Bob was named the OUA Eastern Conference Coach of the Year 9 times and awarded CIS Coach of the Year in 1978 and in 1984.
He can be a kind of a laid-back, like to have a beer kind of guy. He is also a very intensely competitive guy. And he's also got a side of him that's in touch with people. And I think that's what makes Bob a good coach.
Bain retired at the end of the 2010-2011 season after a 1-year sabbatical. Bain was senior lecturer for the School of Kinesiology and Health Science at York and was a tenured professor.
the biggest thing I could say for him as a coach was he was a leader of men, and he turned out good citizens.
His long-lasting contribution as an Ontario representative for the development of the National Coaching Certification Program and his involvement in writing levels 1, 2, and 3 will benefit generations of coaches to come. Bain also trained more 3-level coaches than anyone else in Canada.
From the late 1980s to now, how many coaches we were able to certify through the Kinesiology and Health Science program, as well as through the basketball certification program in the summertime, that's thousands of coaches. And that really positively impacted the development of coaching in Canada.
He played with the Ontario Men's Slow Pitch League for 15 years and continued to play hockey in the winter months with York alumni and friends, although these days he spends more of his time on the golf course.
It was really interesting to see how the former alumni over the decades that played for him came back, and how excited and enthused Bob was in seeing those alumni come back, and it really brought him home to when he started coaching at York.
Bob Bain was inducted into the Ontario Basketball Hall of Fame in 2010. In 2012, he received the OUA John McManus Award for Lifetime Achievement in Coaching. And now, we are proud to welcome Mr. Robert Bain into the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
You can call him Mr., you can call him Professor, the King of York. He puts the yo in yeoman. Coach Bob Bain, come on up. And Alan Hudis, presenting sponsor from U Sports, who's with us tonight as well. Alan? Well, you said you like golf. That's your own green sweater. Not a green jacket, it's a green sweater. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who helped make basketball greater in our community, in our province, and in our country. Coach Bob Bain.
I no longer coach. I no longer teach. Our sons have all left. And in my house, my dog is first, my wife is second. So I'm going to take a little extra long time because nobody listens to me anymore. This could be my last opportunity. First of all, let me just say it's a tremendous honor, and I'm actually quite shocked and surprised when I got a phone call. I actually didn't believe it. I thought it was a prank. I thought it was a joke. My players over the years have played several pranks, and I'm the kind of guy that always gets caught. I'd go out and look when my car was gone. I'd show up at places I was supposed to meet people. So at first I thought this was a little bit of a joke, and I was persuaded, yes, it was true. I had no idea about what this event was about. I want to thank the Aurora Hall of Fame for inducting me. I want to thank the people responsible for putting my name forward. And again, as I said before, my wife and I were quite surprised and shocked, and we're still kind of wondering at the grandeur of the whole event, over 2 days no less. I'm I have to say that I'm extremely impressed by the quality of the people that have been inducted before me. I've read their bios. I actually went up to the arena and read everything on the wall. I thought, wow, how do I belong here? And it's illustrated tonight in the people that were being inducted. Dave Moreland, I worked the Canadian Open as a statistician and a shot lane guy, and I watched him play. To be inducted in the Hall of Fame with someone as famous as that is kind of an honor. And I will tell you, I do golf, and I use all kinds of illustrations in my courses from the game of golf, particularly from the psychological aspect. I think it's probably one of the hardest sports, not only from a fine motor skill, but from the psychological standpoint. You're out there by yourself, you make a bad shot, how do you deal with it? Those were the aspects that everybody in my courses could understand. To Paulina, I read your bio, and I'm extremely impressed. First of all, I could run, I could ride a bike, but getting in the water was a question of survival for me. And for you to do what you did, you must be an outstanding athlete, and obviously you are. The Doolittle family. I had this love-hate relationship with referees. My players will tell you that. And it started that's how I played. I had to play on the edge, so to speak. And I want to tell a story about referees. And I think they can relate to this. The Doolittle family will relate to this. Many years ago, as a young coach, I'm at York University now. And what happened was I was in a bad accident. I think it was mentioned earlier tonight. Out on Highway 9, I hit a truck head on. And in basketball talk, we'd say I took the charge. Regardless, I was in intensive care. I came out, and I'd always had a problem with two referees in particular. Well, when I came they finally transferred me into a room. I was a little doped up, and I looked at the end of my bed when I first kind of came awake, and there were those two referees. It's unbelievable. I'll mention they're both passed away now, but I thought to myself, where am I? I guess the moral of the story is I came to realize that we were all in this thing together. Referees, spectators, players, coaches, statisticians, it's all one big thing, sport. Now, I said before, I no longer coach. I'm not sure how I started to be a coach. Some people would say it was luck, some people would say it was fate, as you saw and you heard before, and I don't know where they got all that information, it's unbelievable. But my parents did tell me at one point they met at center court in a basketball court at the ASHoF. My mom was from Edmonton. She wanted to be an Edmonton grad. My father had played a little basketball at my collegiate, that you saw up there, Stanford Collegiate, and they literally met at center court. The rest is history after the war. But the true story is that my former coach, when I was going to Stanford Collegiate, showed me a couple of moves. I didn't make the team. I didn't make the team in grade 9. Showed me some things to do. I worked on them, and basketball became my sport. I played everything, I did everything, and what do they say? You're pretty good, but you were never the best. But basketball became my sport. My former coach, not only did he teach me how to play, but he actually encouraged me to go to university and drove me up to university, filled in the forms, and that's how I got to university. He became a colleague of mine because he coached for a couple of years, assistant coach at Brock, and we were actually roommates during the 76 Olympics when we both worked on the statisticians' tables. Oddly enough, they're honoring him next week in my hometown. He's since passed away, but he's kind of my role model and the person that kind of got me involved in basketball and sport in general. Now, there's another story behind this, because when I did transfer to the University of Alberta after finishing up in Ontario at Waterloo Lutheran, now Wilfrid Laurier. And in my graduate years, I got the opportunity to coach. My eligibility was up, and I got the opportunity to coach, and we did well at the junior varsity level, and then the coach left for a year, and I got the opportunity, extremely lucky, to coach the varsity program. Well, it was, I think I had a contract for 8 months, very poorly paid, but that's the way it was in those days. And I decided, you know what, I wanted to kind of keep trying this coaching thing, although it was unheard of. I did get a job at York University as a lecturer. But I told the person in charge, Dr. Bryce Taylor, who gave me an opportunity, he said, you know, I will let you out of your contract if, in fact, you get a coaching job, because we don't have one open here. And I said, well, who's a coach? Well, I'm not sure. He said, the person that did it is leaving, and I'm not sure. And I said, well, let me know. Maybe I can help out. But in the unlikely event I do get another job, and I think there was one open in Canada, I said, I'd like to be released from the contract. He said, no problem. He called me back in a week, and here are the words he said. By the way, you're now the coach. So that's how I stayed as a coach. Series of one-year contracts, no big deal. And you know what, how many years later, 38 years later, I was still there. So that's how I became a coach. Is it luck? Is it fate? I don't know. I worked very hard, but there are a number of people that are responsible for me being here. First of all, my players. I can't say enough. You saw Jonesy up there, and you'll see Mark on TV. You see a whole bunch. I'm very, very proud of my players. In those days, when I first started coaching, not too many people recruited. We weren't paid well. We weren't. Sometimes there was even head coaches who were full-time at the university. So bottom line is that I started to recruit players. We had no money. Not one of my players ever got a cent. I could say that. Not a cent. And now you have scholarships, academic, whatever. And I can tell you, I recruited on 3 things. Number one, you had to get into York. And in those days, you had to have an average, and there was no way around it. So we lost players that went out of province. We lost players that went to the States. We lost players that could not get into York because of academic. Second thing, they had to be skillful. And we recruited hard. We went around, watched tournaments, talked to somebody today from St. Michael's College, and I used to go down there and watch all the high school tournaments and recruited players, skilled players. And in those days, it wasn't like it was now. Toronto was just starting to develop as a basketball mecca, so to speak. And last but not least, I tried to recruit players that had good character. And we talked to their coaches, we talked to a lot of people, and I was right. I mean, I'm so proud of the fact that I'm going to say, I only remember out of all those years, 2 guys not graduating. One was one course away and got a job. Another went into something brand new called computers and all that stuff, and he's probably a multi-millionaire right now, I don't know. But he left a little bit early because he had a job. I don't blame him for that, but it broke our record at 100%. But these are character people. I mean, I'm so proud of those character people. Who else do I thank? I have to thank my wife. She was a coach in her own right. She started the program at Yorkdale Collegiate for men, junior and senior program. And she did everything at York for a while. She was the video person. She did timing and scoring. And I helped her run the high school tournament at Christmas when we had one. So for Linda, thank you very much for helping me and standing by me all these years. She also gave me a lot of coaching advice on when to take timeouts, who should be playing, who should go in the Hall of Fame, and all those kinds of things too. I want to thank another body. I got to tell a story here. Many years ago in Alberta, I got a knock on the door, and it was a census taker. And the census taker said to me, I'm here to how many people in the house? What do you do for a living? And she says, profession. I said, well, I'm a coach. And she looked at me and said, you're a coach? What do you coach? I said, I coach basketball. She said, "Did they pay you for that?" And I was kind of taken aback. And I said, "Well," she said, "What else?" And I said, "Well, I teach." "Oh, teacher." That's what she wrote down, teacher. And I was kind of surprised at that because there was no recognition for coaches. There's nothing done for coaches back then. As I told you before, we really didn't even have full-time jobs at universities or in many places. Something happened. And there was something called the National Coaching Certification Program came along. Maybe started in '72 with the Canada-Russia hockey series where we almost lost, but we did score. Henderson with that last goal, we were all there. And that program started to do something for coaches, the certified coaches in our country. It's an unbelievably great program. My sons have all gone through it. They coach hockey. They haven't seen the light yet, but anyway. I went through it. And I want to recognize the NCCP, the National Coaching Certification Program, for what it did for Canada today. And I know the person that certified me, Ron Weiss, is in the room tonight. So I thank you very much. I can't see you, but anyway, Ron, thank you. As a matter of fact, you certified virtually all the profs and coaches at York University. I don't know if you remember that or not. In conclusion, I just say, there is now something for coaches, and just for me standing here, I want to thank the committee again for recognizing coaching. I will tell you this, I was paid. In the end, I was paid well. Not so much in the beginning, but in the end I was. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of people in this community that give up their time as volunteers. And they're the ones that truly should be recognized, and I would hope and plead with the people in the Hall of Fame at some point to recognize them for their contributions, because they are the ones that are developing the positive self-images in our kids. They're the ones that are teaching the skills and the roles, and they're the ones that are the models. And I'm going to tell you, if we do this, and these people do their jobs, that we'll have a better Aurora, a better Ontario, better Canada. And I thank you for this honor.